Malik Johnson was just 19 years old when he walked into the dojo for the first time. There was nothing flashy about him. No headband. No gym gear. Just an old hoodie, faded sweatpants, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. He kept his hands in his pockets, his eyes on the floor. No bravado, no attitude, just a quiet focus that felt out of place in a room filled with loud, confident energy. To most people in that room, Malik didn't belong. He was the only black kid in a class dominated by upper-middle-class athletes, most of whom had been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since they were kids. When he entered, the air shifted slightly. Conversations paused. Heads turned. You could feel the unspoken thoughts hanging in the air. Is he lost? New guy? Let's see how long he lasts. Does he even know what this place is? Malik heard it all, the whispers, the jokes, the not-so-subtle glances exchanged between classmates. But he didn't flinch. He didn't respond. He had walked through worse crowds, faced worse odds. To Malik, this was just another test. And tests were nothing new. Malik grew up in the heart of a city that forgot about kids like him. In a neighborhood where police sirens replaced lullabies and street corners offered more danger than opportunity. His father had vanished when he was just a child. His mother, a warrior in her own right, worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. She had no time for lectures, so she raised Malik with looks, the kind of gaze that said be better without ever using words. By age 12, Malik had already seen too much. Fistfights outside his school. Friends lost to the streets. Temptations that whispered to him daily. But one afternoon changed everything. He was 12, angry, and ready to pick a fight when he met a quiet, older man named Elijah, a retired Marine who volunteered at the local rec center. Elijah stopped Malik mid-rant and offered him a deal. You want to hit something? Hit this mat. I'll show you how. That's where it started. Elijah introduced him to the basics of grappling, control, and discipline. No belts. No certificates. Just sweat and silence. For years after, Malik trained in secret. He watched hundreds of hours of YouTube videos. He built his own training dummy out of duct tape and pillows. He practiced until his arms were numb, his legs shook, and his lungs burned. No coach. No gym. Just obsession. Just purpose. So when Malik finally stepped into a real dojo years later, he wasn't a beginner. He was a storm waiting to be noticed. The coach, a thick-set man with years of wear on his joints, eyed Malik with the same skepticism the students did. Still, he welcomed him. Everyone gets a chance. That's the rule of Jiu-Jitsu. But inside, the doubts simmered. All right, the coach called out, who wants to spar with the new guy? Hands shot up, but not for the right reasons. They didn't want to welcome him. They wanted to test him, embarrass him. Make him quit before he got comfortable. The coach picked Tyler, a brown belt known for his flashy takedowns and big personality. Stocky, smug, and overconfident. He grinned as he stepped onto the mat, whispering something to his friends before facing Malik. Don't worry, I'll go easy, he said sarcastically, loud enough for everyone to hear. Malik gave a small nod and took his stance. The coach raised his hand. Ready? Go. In an instant, Tyler lunged forward with the confidence of a man used to winning. But he made one mistake, he underestimated Malik. Malik pivoted, ducked low, and executed a lightning-fast hip toss that slammed Tyler to the ground with a heavy thud. The crowd gasped. Tyler tried to scramble, but before he could react, Malik was behind him, legs locked, arms around his neck. Rear naked choke. Deep. Precise. Unrelenting. Tyler tapped. 14 seconds. That's all it took. The room went silent. The kind of silence that feels louder than noise. Tyler rolled away, coughing, stunned, humiliated. Malik stood and bowed respectfully, saying nothing. The coach blinked, stunned. Where did you train? He asked. Malik shrugged. I didn't. I just practiced. A lot. No one said a word. The coach stared at him, then asked, Want to go again? Malik nodded. And that's when the real test began. Over the next 30 minutes, Malik rolled with purple belts, brown belts, and even the assistant instructor, all more experienced, more decorated. But it didn't matter. Malik flowed through each roll like water, adapting, anticipating, controlling. His technique wasn't flashy, it was efficient. Controlled. Ruthless in its calmness. Every move had a purpose. Every hold, every sweep, every choke, deliberate. He didn't celebrate after each win. He didn't talk trash. He simply bowed, reset, and kept going. By the end of it, the entire class had gathered around the mat, watching. The coach stood in silence for a moment, then finally said, You're not just here to train. You're here to be tested. What happened next shocked everyone. The head instructor, a third-degree black belt with decades of experience, stepped forward. A quiet man with deep-set eyes, he rarely sparred with newcomers. But something about Malik moved him. He tied his belt tighter, stepped onto the mat, and motioned for Malik to come forward. This wasn't about domination. It was about spirit. About depth. Malik stepped in, and the two bowed. What followed wasn't a fight. It was art. 10 minutes of fluid motion, counters, transitions, respect. The black belt pressed Malik hard, testing every muscle, every nerve, every ounce of will. But Malik didn't crack. He didn't fold. He moved with clarity, with understanding. He wasn't trying to win. He was listening. Feeling. Learning. When the round ended, the instructor stepped back, breathing heavily. Then he walked toward the corner of the room, opened a wooden box, and pulled out a folded belt, black. He turned to the class. This belt doesn't just mean skill. It means you've walked through fire and stayed standing. It means you've mastered yourself, not just the art. He handed the belt to Malik and said, "You've earned this." The class erupted in stunned silence. The same people who doubted him now stood in awe. Some clapped. Others just nodded, trying to process what they had witnessed. Malik stood tall, black belt in hand. He didn't cry. He didn't grin. He simply nodded once, deeply, as if honoring something only he understood. Later that evening, Malik sat alone in the locker room, staring at his reflection. The belt rested in his lap. He thought about his mother, still working late hours. About Elijah, the man who first showed him the way. About the years he spent training alone, doubted, invisible. And now, here he was, seen. But this wasn't the end. Malik knew that. The belt wasn't a trophy. It was a responsibility. An invitation to lead. To teach. To carry the weight for those coming after him. The dojo would never be the same. And neither would the students who once laughed at the sight of him. Because greatness doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes, it enters the room quietly. In silence. In shadows. In patience. And sometimes, it only takes 14 seconds to change everything. Closing message. Let this be a reminder, you don't have to fit their mold. You don't need their approval. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. Let your work speak. Let your silence shake rooms. Let your pain become your discipline. Because no matter who doubts you, who mocks you, or who tries to put you in a box, you are the only one who decides what your story becomes. Malik Johnson walked in as a nobody. He left as a black belt. And all it took was 14 seconds.